Hi, truth students, students of truth. Thank you for visiting. Please like and subscribe. My name is Wiley Joseph Dollinger III. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or constructive criticism, please just say so. So, we're making this video about subconscious neurolinguistic programming and hypnosis, but just kind of some information, some of the things that I learned when I was first began learning, which hasn't been a very great while ago, neurolinguistic programming, but how that it coincides with the subconscious, how that coincides with hypnosis, and just some information notes that I had written down that I'm just going to share with people because I think it's absolutely fascinating. And have studied consciousness in our inner eye and spiritual science and anthroposophy, the mysteries and initiation science, all that. But so this is like a clinical um, explanation. So NLP is neuro-linguistic programming, and it has to do with our conscious, unconscious, and our subconscious. So there's at least three levels there, grammatically distinguished apart. So conscious, unconscious, and subconscious. Unconscious, we have the ability to recall. Actually, under um, um, it's interesting how it works. So if you were to, any typical person were to go under hypnosis, right? And it's called the somnambulistic state, and um, then the therapist or the hypnotist will communicate with the subconscious person, okay? And there's some absolutely defining characteristics that all people's subconscious do. And so we've been able to study and learn about the subconscious from a clinical aspect, right? Very fundamental and practical and makes wonderful sense. And so as I've been learning about that aspect of it, I really want to share that. But so when you take a person into this somnambulistic, this hypnotic state, especially depending on how it's referred to as how deep under the that they go, right? For how suggestive they are and what the therapist typically or ideally will do. People will want to like quit smoking cigarettes or um, uh, their back not hurt after work during the week or just whatever little requests and stuff. One of the things that is especially I thought um, um, really something I've actually searched for a long time and not been able to find anything about really anywhere until I was studying this in hypnosis and linguistic programming, and it's the one way to cure phobias. And there's just a way to cure phobias is a common request, and so people will be hypnotized, and the hypnotist or therapist, psychoanalyst, will say things in such a way that will have an effect when you come back to your regular conscious state, like your waking cognitive, like now that you remember in your memories and stuff. But there's some really fascinating, absolutely peculiar and defining attributes about people's subconscious, right? And so that's what this video. I want to just share that with people. So unconscious has the ability to recall things, right? And it actually records everything. We have no idea. But our entire lives, everywhere we've ever been, and everything we've ever done, you know what I mean? Beyond a certain point or whatever, um, we could go under hypnosis and ask us like some absolutely obscure question that like, what color shirt was, just something totally crazy off the wall. And people in their subconscious, you're so in other ways though, but I mean, I've discovered that the subconscious like picks up on everything. We aren't ever conscious of it, but knows every detail and everything, right? Our subconscious. So it's really peculiar how the subconscious acts. go under hypnosis. So it records everything, everywhere it's ever been, and it remembers everything at the drop of a dime. Okay? But you'd never know this in consciousness. I don't have any idea the crazy details from every experience I've ever had, and so that's one of the peculiarities. But that's where all memories are, where all emotions are. Is what this says. Notes, and so that's emotions are communications from the unconscious. Actually, do you remember it? Actually, teaching us that emotions are communications from the unconscious. Like the number one thing, I guess, most popular treatment thing or big deal, I guess, that people have or whatever is they have suppressed emotions or haven't dealt with repressed emotions or whatever, right? And so essentially that's really what like therapy and all this stuff was for, because the theory, the psychological um, um, epistemology, the theory of knowledge, right, is that they will the purpose of therapy, that they will hypnotize you, and that people experience some kind of experience like in their childhood or some kind of traumatic experience, and they don't know that they have trauma from this, but they'll have these issues for their whole life, like something that happened to them when they were a kid and they've just been that way their whole life and they don't know. But these therapists suggest this is suppressed emotion, and that you can hypnotize them, and the therapist can help them bring these suppressed emotions up and deal with them on a conscious level, and that it's therapy. That's the therapy model for a lot of, and how this hypnosis thing, a lot of clinicians use it, right? I'm fascinated with the subconsciousness and trying to learn. So, but check this out. So, emotions are communications from the unconscious, like when we have. Anyway, so memory, a number of impressions at different sensory systems, right? It's like a library, like a file system at our mind. Associations creates, of course, habitual behaviors and routines, and I could talk about that forever, like just to regurgitate what I've learned from Joe Dispenza about habitual behavior and investing conscious thought into them and our attention before we don't. Habits are like walking and talking, and those are habits. Those are things that it took a lot of energy to think about learning how to do, like conscious focus, learning how to talk, learning how to walk. But once we learn how to do those things, then it's a habit. And a habit is the one thing that the mind creates without ever knowing how or what it's actually creating, and where it is. So, so we do those things routinely without having to think about them anymore, and we can consciously focus on other things while we do those routines. In fact, we don't. A lot of things, times people don't even know they're doing these routines. It's habitual habits, behavior. You want to change the way that you feel, change the way that you think. It's just, I'm just talking about Joe Dispenza, who, really actually, his book, Becoming Supernatural, probably saved my life. But this is really cool to learn about the unconscious, right? Because, okay, so habitual behaviors creates routines but does not pay attention to what it is being created. So the mind, I thought this was pretty fascinating too, can only do 6 things. Okay, the therapist can absolutely know if you're thinking of words, if you're talking to yourself. They can know if you're thinking of someone else. They can know if you're reflecting on yourself. If you, or it's like, I'll just show you. It's this real simple system, and all humans do this thing. So our brains will only do like 6 different things, in our head. That's what our inner dialogue is, right? We can um, um, have visual, pictorial um, visualization, like pictures, images in our mind. We can have sounds, smells, tastes. Um, Hold on, I'll tell you right now. This is wild. And by which one of those we're doing, we which region of our brain is which way that our eyes look, actually. Um, and it's um, really fascinating. The unconscious works with and responds to symbols, actually, and metaphors. And so that's one of the things that's the language that you have to, or supposed to, and most effective way to communicate with your client who you have hypnotized and you're trying to resolve whatever it is. So the way that to really, if the client wants to stop smoking, what you can say, the way that most effective way you can say and suggest for them to quit smoking is actually through metaphors and symbols, um, and like you know, so the stories about, like, fairy tales and King Arthur and all this stuff or whatever. So they actually communicate. So these metaphorical stories that people are like, oh, that's a myth. That can't be. That's not true. Blah 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 blah. Well, okay, right, on a tangible world, but so those always actually communicate something that only your subconscious can understand. And furthermore, it's the only way that your subconscious can understand these things. So that's what the myths and metaphors are actually for and doing, and always have been. And I learned that when I started learning about hypnosis and neurolinguistics. Um, so, but the unconscious works in response to symbols and metaphors. Um, okay, it takes everything personally. When you criticize someone or something, your unconscious mind takes that as a comment about itself. It does not matter who you're talking to, what, thinking about them, thinking about yourself, anything else. It always thinks that it's like self-inflicted. When you think something good about anything, it thinks good about itself. When you think something bad or negative, something that's not good about anything or anybody, it thinks that about itself. There's one actual explanation here that illustrates it really well, I thought. So even when you think something about negative about someone else, it's their behavior, their subconscious. Doesn't matter. It always thinks that it's itself. For instance, when a person thinks someone or something or their behavior is unacceptable, the subconscious does not distinguish from itself. It believes, it takes perception personally. An example: driving, you see some big elaborate mansion, house, or whatever, and you stop, get out, admire it. Like, wow, what a beautiful house. And you go up, you even knock on the door or whatever. And so driving, see a mansion, admiring it, notice it's very, knock on the door, notice it's a very attractive young couple. Answer the door. And by thinking the way, so this was the example that it listed. So if when a young, unexpected, not what you would expect, a couple answers the door, this whatever, by thinking something like they must have rich parents, or they must have won the lottery, or they must sell drugs. The examples that it listed in this course, but so a person, by thinking like that, effectively suggesting to their own unconscious mind, and unless they themselves either have rich parents, win the lotto, or sell drugs for a life of crime, then they will not ever get a house, a mansion, like the one that they were admiring. And that's how the subconscious works. Because when some young, unexpected couple answer the door having a negative thought, positive one, and and that goes into so much into the law of attraction, self-limiting behaviors, and all this stuff that you hear other people talk about, but really about attachments and polarity. But anyway, so anytime someone blames some other cause besides themselves, right? Anytime it's like, I did this or that because, well, they made me. They did this or that, and I got mad or whatever. So it's a normal or justified or rational reaction to somebody else's, right? But it's actually not. Like, it's actually like uh, getting to a place where other people can do things and it doesn't upset you, because you're like, you choose to feel however you feel. If you're happy or mad, it's because you choose to feel that way. I mean, it's totally just anyway. I feel like that's a little misunderstood, but their own subconscious believes it takes it personally. It will create the results in the world, which tend to believe those results about itself. It is its job, its prime directive. It always follows the path of least resistance. Need to create a goal through vision, feeling details, and accomplishing a goal. Completed. Unconscious mind. So check this out. Unconscious mind does not process a negative. It cannot represent negation, like to pose a question in a negative, a double negative, but continuously moves you towards whatever you continuously focus your attention on. Okay, and this is phenomenal, dude. With the how it works, and when people are hypnotized, and what your subconscious picks up, and if you think to yourself, I don't want to be fat, then that will make you gain weight. It's the way it works. It reacts to that, like, I don't want to be fat. It thinks you're. So just anything negative, it takes it towards itself. Anything positive, it takes it towards itself. So, like Joe Dispenza said, if you want to change the way you feel or change the way your life is, change the way you think, right? So just think positive. But I know it's easier said than done, but I'm fascinated by this. Hold on. Focus on the things you want and not the things you don't. Focus on solutions, not problems, right? Neuro sense percepts, like our neurological sense perceptibility, which is our five senses: touch, smell, sight, taste, hearing, linguistics, language, words, which are semantics, neurorepresentations. The mind can do anything, but it can actually only do 6 things. And so it can have pictures, right? We can have visualization. We can think about a scene or something. We can picture something in our head. It can do pictures. It can do sounds, like we can hear sounds or imagine sounds, whatever in our head. Feelings, tastes, smells, and words. So it can do words. That's a big one, like inner dialogue, so that you can have a voice inside your head that speaks words. It's capable of doing words, pictures, sounds, tastes, smells, and feelings, right? So by using those 6 things, we build what this calls internal representations, but in epistemological and spiritual science study, Truth and Freedom and Goethe's theory of knowledge, is called concepts, is actually the word. Concepts. We can form concepts, internal representations, whatever, but picture, sound, feelings, taste, smells, and inner dialogue, words. So, and when a clinician asks you a question, they can tell if you're in your thoughts, whatever it is that you think. They'll ask you a question, like it's designed for this. They'll ask you a question, and they'll know that you need to use words to come up with the answer, or know that you need to think about the past or something. And so they'll ask these questions strategically, but your eyes always go to if you're thinking about inner dialogue in your head, your eyes always do this thing to the same direction right before you start doing it or while you're doing it. It's like all 6 directions in each. It's wild. It's really fascinating how the human brain and neurolinguistics work and how they discovered this in the 70s. And I'll to explain that, but it's already been 20 minutes. But neurolinguistic programming, the study of subjective experience, how we experience the world is through our senses. So, co-founder Dr. Richard Bandler, Bandler, an attitude and methodology that leaves behind a trail of 3 attitudes, techniques: curiosity, experimentation, as if acting. And actually, that's our okay. So here's the behavioral modeling. So in the 1970s, Richard Bandler, John Grinder, co-creators of NLP, University of California, computing systems, linguistics program. All right. So they were trying to build this in the computer, so they wanted to model people's human brain, these programming. So Richard was curious why people are, one of the computer scientists were curious why people are good at accomplishing tasks and others, some with the same skills, are not good at accomplishing the task. And so one example was in the USA in the 1970s at this time. A lot of people had been going to therapists, sometimes for several years, sometimes with no results. While these 3 therapists, their names, Erickson, Satire, and Perez or Pearls, achieved phenomenal results quickly and consistently counseling. So what did they do different? So they picked those 3 people to model their. So they wanted to model those 3 individuals to learn how they achieve goal proficiently to learn themselves and teach others. And so they could do this with the computer. The patterns they observed at Virginia Satire's work became the first book in this field, entitled The Structure of Magic, Volume 1. The model they elicited, they called meta model, as well as modeling language patterns. They also modeled the way these people filtered their experiences, the things that were important to them, what they believed, and the sequence in the way they thought and how they went about doing things. The results of the modeling test, behavioral modeling, form the foundations of NLP, natural neurolinguistics programming. So brain processes about 2 billion bits per second from your sight, smell, touch, taste, and the brain filters so that it's just these concepts. It's not overwhelming. It focuses on exactly what you need to focus on. It's kind of magic, like the brain, right? Because you are having all these physical precepts constantly. But anyway, some interesting, really interesting stuff. The only kind of filters, the 8 filters that it uses, and this is kind of interesting too, but the 8 filters are time and space, or matter and energy, language, memories, decisions, meta programs, values, beliefs, or attitude, behaviors. Those are the 8 levels. But they discovered that minds can't keep track of, what is it, like 7 plus or minus 2 things at a time. And that if you tell a story or something or an event and have people go that far into it without getting back to the original point, that the mind can't keep up with it and all this stuff, right? How neurolinguistics programming works. And I just learned all this, and I'm like, wow, it's just absolutely enlightening. But to censor the information, delete, distort, and how we store information, our experience, changing psychology, changing the way we think, neural levels, anthropologists, beliefs and values. To change at these levels, you have to work directly with the internal representations and programs. So that's why people do the hypnotism. But when people are under hypnotism, it's just wild. They'll do anything you tell them to. Absolutely anything you tell them to. They absolutely, no one has no will of their own whatsoever. No ambition, no desires or goals, no will. But they will do anything you tell them to, and like there's no common sense or anything. You can't even joke with them, and I guess it gets relatively frustrating that you have to be so direct with them because you have to like. It's so simple, but everybody's subconscious remembers everything that's ever happened in detail and could call it up like a dime. Has no will of their own, no desire. They won't do anything, but they will do anything that you tell them to or ask them to. And it's there's a couple other characteristics, right, that are subconscious, and it's really fascinating. It's really for anyone who hasn't, check it out, and it's so valuable, of course, in spiritual science, anthropology. You know, the evolution of our consciousness, just studying this aspect of it, but cause and effect, take 100% responsibility, of course. And anyway, but that's a 26-minute video. So, but I'll probably just make a quick video and talk about that. But anyway, man, it's just really, it's pretty wild.